Hi, I'm the Warrior Witch, and you can call me Nike. My glasses are so dirty and today I actually feel like wearing them, so lucky me. So today we're talking about something that I regard as being pretty important, and that would be connecting Spellwork to a person. Now this can be done a number of ways, and I'm going to show you a couple of my personal methods, and just like with anything, if you do it a different way or you like a different method, these are not the only ones out there, so do a little research if you don't like any of these options. I'm just going to be showing you stuff that I like to do myself. You're going to hear me say this term called tag lock, and a tag lock is basically anything that connects a spell to a person, which is kind of what this whole video is about, right? So the generally accepted methods are going to vary from person to person, but usually it involves things that are physically connected to them, like hair or anything that they've touched or eaten off of, maybe like a fork or a cigarette. In the Norse traditions and in American folk traditions, including hoodoo and Appalachian folk magic, there's often dirts, like dirt from where a person has stepped. So those can be connected to a person. Usually things that are physically connected to a person, like their hair, is going to be a little bit harder to get, especially if you don't live near them or don't have access to their things. So using name papers or petitions where you have their name and their birthday are going to be a little bit easier, because getting someone's general birthday just down to the day and the year is going to be a lot easier than getting some of those things. But if you happen to be in proximity to them at any point, you can get lucky and get those things. Now, I will say, don't break in anybody's house. Don't steal, you know. Do your best not to break the law. I'd like you guys not to go to jail. So remember that you don't have to have the physical items, you don't have to go and get their actual possessions in order to connect a spell to a person. And generally, on the whole, it's better to have them be aware so that they are ready to accept the circumstances that would bring those things into their lives. But that will all depend on your personal morals and ethics if you are okay with doing spell work for people who are not aware. And I won't tell you one way or another how to feel, that is all up to you. Alright, hello everyone and welcome. Now we're going to get into our segment about connecting your spell work to people. So as I mentioned in the intro, there's a couple of methods, but I'm just going to go over the ones that I use most frequently and the ones that I am most familiar with. So as always, remember, if you have a method that you like better, or that works better for you, or that you learned, and you like to use that more than my methods, don't worry, there's not one way to do things in magic. So, with that said, let's start with the one that you're probably most familiar with, which would be petitions. So petitions are great because you don't need anything of that person, you don't even need their photograph, all you generally need is their name and their birthday. And most of the time this information can be gotten fairly easily, so it doesn't really take all that much. Most people post their birthdays online, especially if you happen to be able to find them on Facebook, like if you know them in real life and you know how old they are, you can find the year and then it's easy from there. So let's say we're gonna have John Smith, born January 1st, 1990. So we got his name, we have his birthday. So if you want to connect your spell with John, you're going to need to write his name 3 times. And now, if you want to bring something into John, you would turn your paper clockwise, and if you want to send something away from John, you would turn it counterclockwise. So in this instance, we're going to say we're going to bring money into John's life. So clockwise motion, and then we're going to write across his name 3 times your intention. So let's say it's $50. John needs $50. So John has $50. Okay, so if he has none, and now he will have some. So, like I said, 3 times. So, another turn. This time we're going to do diagonally, and you're going to sign it because you're the one who's doing the spell. If John were doing the spell and you were just showing him how, then he would sign it. Whoever is going to be actually casting it needs to be the one to sign it to seal it in. So, we're just going to do... I like to sign it 3 times. Obviously this is not my real name. I would use my real name if I was doing this to add a little bit more power, but you can also just use a name that you are much more connected with, so it doesn't have to necessarily be a legal name, it just has to be the name that you identify with yourself. So now that we've done this, we're gonna turn it one final time. Now we don't want machine cut edges, we want them to be raw. So just like with turning, we're going to tear the paper. If you want to bring it in, you tear it towards you. If you want to send away, you tear away. So in this case, I'm gonna start on the right side and I'm gonna tear clockwise and turn it clockwise the whole time. So turn clockwise, tear, and the whole time you're thinking about your intention. John's gonna have $50. John has $50. Think of it in the present tense. John has. And there we go. Here's your petition. So the next step would be to fold it. Once again, towards, to bring, away, to send away. So we're gonna fold it inwards. You do this as many times as you need, depending on how big you need your petition to be. Turn clockwise. You could fold it into thirds if 3 is a magical number. And so now you have your petition. You can seal this with wax. Whoop. You can seal this with wax, so you could keep it closed. You could have the candle wax of the spell that you're doing. You could drip that onto it as it starts to burn. You can burn this if you want. I would recommend burning if you want to send something away or to destroy something. So if you want to, say, banish John or banish something from John, that's when I would say to burn it. But otherwise, you can just generally do what you want. If burning works for you, burn it. So the important thing about petitions and wording any spell work in general is going to be that we want to phrase it in the present tense. And that's why we wrote John has $50, not John will have, because if you say will have, it is a permanent state of it will come eventually, but he does not have it now. He will forever be needing and waiting on and expecting that money, but that money never comes. If we say John has $50, he has it right now. And so when you're putting that energy out into the universe understands, oh, right now he has $50. This $50 is his. It just needs to be in his hands because it already is in his life. Now, if you don't want to do a petition, if you feel better connected with images especially, I would say then you need to print out a picture of them. And again, if you can get their birth info, you can probably get a picture of them. It's pretty common for people to post selfies online. So I'll actually show you what method I like to use. You can use a regular printer at home. It's not a big deal, but I just happen to have something that I find very convenient. Not sponsored. This is called a Polaroid zip. So this will print out little images of whatever I have on my phone because it connects via Bluetooth. So as an example, I have all these little photos I've printed out before. And so it can be any image you want. So we're actually gonna go through this together. I'm not going to print out a picture of my face. I'm just gonna print another photo that I like. So I've got my Polaroid zip app open already. I'm gonna make sure that my Polaroid zip is on. There's the light. We're just gonna set this aside. So I'm going to pick this image, but if I had my face or the target's face, then you would use that. Do print preview. Next. And so it sets it up for you and you know that it's gonna print in this format. Print. So eventually this will print out on the printer. And there we have it, our photo. Now, as just a side note, if you're looking to get this printer, the colors are not exact. It's not exactly perfect. You're not really looking for color perfection here. It's relatively cheap, generally. So we're not looking for it to be the most spectacular thing in the entire planet. So, when you have somebody's face, we're just gonna use this as the example. The nice thing about the Polaroid zip is that the back is actually sticky, so if you remove this, it is a sticker. So you could put it onto a bag or a piece of cloth, you could put it on a candle, wherever you're gonna need to put this, you can stick it to any form of materials. You could even put materials across the sticky part and then roll it up in the photo. So this would be the easiest way to connect it to their face. Now getting slightly more personal, I, being somebody who's interested in astrology, have started using birth charts. So this is the chart of the moment that I printed out. This was the chart of the moment when I printed it. Nothing super special. I just used my astrology app that I like using, which is Time Nomad, which I think is Apple exclusive, but any app will do. So I print out the birth chart and I can use that to connect it to a person as well. There is a reason that people who do astrology will tell you not to let people have your birth information, because if they have your chart, they can use that information against you, not just how your planets are placed, but they can use that as what we call a tag lock. So I could use this just the same as I would a person's name or their face. It doesn't have the direct intention, so you might still, if you have their face or their birth chart, you might still want to write a petition. You just wouldn't necessarily need to as directly connect it. You can still do the names and make it doubly connected with both, but you wouldn't necessarily need to write their name if you have their face or their birth chart. Although with the birth chart, the name as well would help. You wouldn't need the birthday. So the next thing is going to be a little bit harder to get. If you're doing spell work for yourself, obviously this is going to be easy, but if you're doing it for somebody else, personal items will help add some power. If they have an old pair of glasses, you could take that pair of glasses. If they have scrunchies or maybe like a favorite pen, something that is very personal to them and is very much connected to who they are. It couldn't just be like a throwaway notebook that they have and haven't used yet. It would have to be something that they actually have emotional investment into and is connected to who they are. Now, a step further than that is going to be anything that is physically connected to them. I'm talking DNA. Some people make it a little squeamish at the thought of hair or fingernail clippings or anything that their mouth is touched, like used cigarettes. So just know that that method is not for the faint-hearted, and you know, magic isn't always light and fluffy. There are nitty-gritty parts to it. There are animal parts sometimes, like bones or feathers or fur. There are pieces of human DNA that people will use, and I won't get into it much further than that because certain parts of it are not for minors. But magic gets a little intense, and when we talk about needing to do your research, making sure that your basics are all set and ready to go, this is why. Magic can be very, very personal. It can be very, very dangerous, and so when you tie it to somebody, it does make it stronger, but it also gives that risk of backfiring the chance to be a lot stronger as well. So let's go with, say, a spell to attract love to somebody. So in this one backfiring, there's a lot of ways, and that's why love spells are one of the things, even just attracting love, that can be kind of difficult. So I've heard before of love spells backfiring in a way of they get too many suitors, or they say that they want Michael, but it's a different Michael, or maybe it's somebody with the middle or last name Michael and they weren't specific enough. So instead of it backfiring in that way, it could turn into that Michael, maybe you got the right target, Michael is now obsessed with your target, and so it became so very personal and so connected between these two people, no matter whose DNA you got. The attraction can be very intense and can become dangerous. So you want to make sure that you are practiced and aware of what you are doing before including things that are much, much more personal. So I would say start with petitions, start with the astrological charts, start with the things that are less physically personal before moving on to items that they possess or DNA pieces. If you don't feel ready for that intensity, that's okay. Not everybody is, and it's okay to accept where you are right now. It is more important to accept that you are not ready for that level yet than to pretend that you're ready for it and let your ego take over and just rush into it, and then you let the danger happen. So please just be self-aware enough to recognize whether or not you're ready for this step, because it really can be intense and we don't want you getting hurt. And that's all I've got for you guys this week. Just, you know, as always, make sure that you're keeping up on your basics. If you're not ready for this, don't push yourself to be ready before you are. Magic's not going anywhere, and it is okay to take your time and to do more studying, to do more research, to try to figure out the things that you want to study before getting to this point, and to study the things that you feel will be important to help round out your knowledge before getting to this point. It's okay. And if you are ready, just be careful, you know. Even experienced practitioners can mess up and have backfires, so just make sure that if you are doing this kind of spell work, you're prepared for backfiring and you know how to undo it. And if you don't know how to undo it, I have a video about that on my channel. I did it just recently. It covers the basics, so of course, just like with anything, it's not going to cover every single method, but generally, it'll help. So I'll see you guys next week, and blessed be!